Hey guys, Pamela Cluth here. And if you've been following me, you know I'm a really big fan of tools and strategies to manage the nervous system better. I have autism and some other neurological challenges and have managed to work through quite a bit in my lifetime. And much of that is due to my mother's way of thinking and managing things and helping me be better to manage my nervous system. And she used a lot of tools and strategies. And this tool bag has continued to grow over the years and has helped me help others manage themselves better. And this tool is one of my favorites. It's called Taking a Minute and is pretty much a good example of a platform for a lot of my approaches, and that is intentional management of the nervous system, where we become more self-aware for our self-care. And taking a minute is one that I coined the name after reading a study that was being conducted back in 2008. And it was so profoundly powerful that I did more research, and it wasn't the first time. It was done numerous times with very much the same results. This study was done in a grade school where they had the children put their heads on their desk and take a minute to think calm and happy thoughts prior to taking a test. And they consistently discovered that these children were scoring much higher on the tests. And the kids themselves discovered, along with that self-esteem of doing better when they were to take a moment to feel better, that they were actually more joyful and happy and able to manage other conflicts or difficult problems. And so they were seeing these kids out on the playground breaking away from conflicts, taking a minute, and self-resolving issues. They were also discovering that the kids were such believers in taking not a timeout, but taking that time to reset their nervous system. They were taking it home with them. And when they were witnessing their parents' stress levels being elevated, these kids were telling their parents that they needed to take a minute to feel better. This is self-awareness. This is intentional management. It's also called self-regulating a nervous system. Taking the time to go in to feel better. Let me tell you a little bit about why this works. When it comes down to too much stress in our nervous system, when we are feeling anxious, when our moods are one that is not happy and calm, but a stressful situation, whether it's irritation, whether it's physical pain, there are many triggers to trigger our moods in a negative direction. But what is actually triggering, in addition to negative moods, is some hormones that are negative, stressful hormones, feeling bad hormones, for lack of better terms. And what happens is these are released in our bloodstream through our brain when we sense that there is a problem or a threat. So you can understand if the kids were nervous about the test, they were releasing stressful hormones, and it affects how we think. When it comes down to having self-management and where the power of this tool comes in of taking a minute, when you are thinking calm and happy, safe thoughts, we actually are triggering other hormones within our body and brain. I call these feel-good hormones. And these hormones help us to feel happy and feel well, but it is also mitigating those stressful hormones. And when it comes down to mitigating with feel-good hormones and calming the nervous system, we are actually functioning better. And so when we can take a moment to break from the stress and reset our brain, it's a powerful tool. And I've seen this work on many people. I've seen it work as young as a 3-year-old with neurological challenge, my son. And so it was 3 years after he was born and having numerous meltdowns, when I had read this article And I went, my mom did this for me all the time growing up, is she had me pull away, not as a timeout, but she told me to go away and make myself happy and feel better and come back in a better mood. And she would have a place for me to go that made me feel good or better. And it was a reset tool. This taking a minute tool was going in and releasing those feel-good hormones again. When it came down to my 3-year-old, he was having these meltdowns, both temper tantrums or crying sessions that would last 45 minutes or more. And he had a very difficult time getting out of that spin. There were times where he would continually repeat, I can't stop this. I can't stop this. Now we think about that comment. For many of us adults, it's like we feel spinning around in a hole of despair and we can't stop this. But really, taking the time to notice it, knowing that you're struggling, and shifting the nervous system is a powerful tool, one of many tools to be able to help us start to feel better and feel less stressed. When it came down to him, I was reminded of this taking time away as a child for myself. And I wondered, if they were doing this in a grade school, would it work on a 3-year-old with his neurological challenges? I took the time after a meltdown, while it was still fresh in his brain, and he was very still disturbed and upset with the fact that we had just spent 45 minutes to an hour feeling terrible. And that is when I said to him, after he had broken away and was feeling slightly well, but still disturbed by what just took place, and I said, we have a way to make you manage these better. If you could not cry and cry and cry, would it be something you would like to try? And of course, the buy-in was there. He did not like feeling this discomfort and these emotional roller coaster rides that he would frequently get into. And so I told him that if we could stop feeling stressful early enough, it wouldn't lead to these full crying sessions and meltdowns. And so the next time that I see that we're getting close to having a meltdown, I will tell him that he needs to go take a minute and that he should go someplace quiet with his blanket already staged there and calm himself and think happy thoughts. Now for him, he loved anything having to do with airplanes. So he was able to take his imagination and think about things that fly. And that was shifting his brain away from the stress of the situation and making him feel good. And he was essentially washing his brain and blood with feel-good hormones and was able to stop the momentum before it got to be too built up within his nervous system, which often happens when it comes down to these meltdowns, these fight or flight or freeze scenarios that take place, is truly just a buildup of way too many stress hormones. And so as parents, or even as adults, if we can recognize that we are getting into a danger zone, stopping it early is a strategy to be able to reset, to take a minute and stop that momentum and the increase of the buildup within our body. And so he did just that. As a 3-year-old, as I told him, hey, you better go, take a minute. And he'd rush off. His favorite place was a quiet stairwell. And he would sit there and come back with a smile on his face and going, I feel better, I feel great. And even anticipating the shift and change that was going to happen can help promote those feel-good hormones to come in and better regulate your nervous system. So for him, it became really easy. He was seeing it was working. And it wasn't too long before he was recognizing his own buildup and rushing off to find a place to feel better. Now, as a 3-year-old, I didn't want him carrying his blanket everywhere, but we discovered he didn't need it. He could take his imagination anywhere. And so, for example, in the past, perhaps walking into a room filled with people, and his sensory challenges would immediately start triggering the stress hormones, and you would see him start running around and spinning and getting a little wild and crazy. And that was the point where I would tell him, you better go take a minute. But he was just doing it on his own as a 3-year-old. Suddenly I would see him spinning and spinning, and I didn't have to tell him. I didn't have to tap him on the shoulder. He was running off to a quiet place and taking a few minutes and coming back grounded and centered and happy and joyful and calm. This, folks, is intentional management of the nervous system, self-regulating of the nervous system that can happen in the very young, and it can happen in many others. It's just one tool of many to help make our nervous systems function better. But it is, again, one of my favorite tools to intentionally go in there and reset our nervous system. So remember the power of those feel-good hormones that you have the ability to shift if you can recognize it, or if you're caretaking for somebody who needs that help. Discovering that momentum and buildup and how it looks in them, because everybody is different. For example, like with my son, his wired behaviors was a precursor to a full meltdown. And if I caught it, we could calm it. For others, it may be that they have already rushed out into a corner to hide, or are having other types of visual difficulties like stimming, or picking at their nails, or bouncing of their leg. Noticing the subtle changes within the nervous system that is starting to build the dysregulation is part of the strategy when you're trying to help somebody else shift and start regulating again. So I hope this tool was helpful to you. It certainly has been for me throughout my lifetime. And remember, it's just one tool of many others where we can start shifting or managing our nervous system better. We may not be able to heal the underlying root causes of our nervous systems, but we certainly can mitigate much of it and manage much of it, or even improve our nervous system based on the plasticity and rewiring that's possible. So I hope you'll continue to follow me. There's more information on my website at pamelacluth.com. I also have a Facebook page, and I like to release little sprinkles out there as well with tips and tools. So I'm glad you're tuning in, looking how to be happier and healthier. And I am hoping that you continue to do the work and know that positive change is possible. Thank you for watching.